I thought I saw Ed here.
I'm here.
Okay, very good. Thanks, Ed. And from Thurston County, Commissioner Carolina Mejia.
I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you. And from the Port of Olympia, Joe Downing. I don't think Joe is with us. From the City of Olympia, Lisa Parsley. And from the City of Tumwater, Joan Cathy. And from the City of Yelm, Joe Richardson. And from the City of Tenino, Elaine Clam. I think she's trying to get in. Okay. And from the town of Bucota, Kirsten Presley. Welcome, Kirsten.
Thank you so much. I am here.
We're excited to have you at your first meeting. And Greg Schoenblockler.
Yep, I'm present by phone.
Great, thanks, Greg. And Richard Moon is here.
Here.
Thanks, Richard. And Delroy Cox is being represented today by John Cox.
I'm here.
And it looks like Joe Downing has joined us.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, thanks. I had technical issues, but now I'm here. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. And Chad Sutter, I think I saw Chad. Yes, there
I'm
he
here.
is. Yeah, great. Thanks, Chad. And David Nightingale.
I'm present.
Perfect. And Laura Busby from Ecology.
I'm here.
Thanks, Laura. And that is it. Jeff, do you want to run through staff?
Certainly. First off, if we have our director, Jennifer Walker. And then I'm looking down the list here. So in the room with you, first off, there's Amanda Romero and Ayla Turnquist, both in there. Is there anybody else in the room that I can't see? Okay. I thought I saw, oh, there was Rob Pudner. And I'm trying to see if there's are there any other county employees that I'm missing?
I think I saw Danielle.
Oh, there's Danielle. Okay. Sorry, Danielle. Is there anybody else that the boxes keep moving around on me? So if not, let's see from the public. Aaron Robertson.
Yep, from Pacific Disposal.
And let's see, Gary Franks. And
I'm here.
And also
Gary
Ron
Franks, City of
Jones,
Olympia
both
Waste
from Olympia.
Resources.
Ron Jones, City of Olympia staff.
Let's see, Kylie Graber. Happened to Kai. Okay.
I'm here. I'm standing in for Chris Hawkins today.
Okay. There was the county employee. Okay, there we go. Of course, we have our speaker for initially, Travis Dutton. And Steve Gilmore.
Steve Gilmore with Republic Services.
Oh, and I do see that Joan Cathy has joined us.
Yes.
We also have Jeff Harwood. I don't know if you said that on the phone there, listening in.
I think that is, oh, Nick Harbert. I don't think I called out Nick.
Morning, everyone. Nick Herbert, WM.
Yeah, Jeff Harwood is.
Okay.
Also, Jeff Harwood is, I think, here listening.
Oh, I see. There.
I think he's just here by phone.
Okay. Is there anybody that I have missed? Okay.
Okay. Thanks for joining us, Joan. And do I have a motion to approve the agenda for today's meeting? Thank you.
Second.
There is one amendment that we need to note. Our new representative from the town of Bucota is Kirsten Presley. And on the agenda, it's listed as Steve Purcell, but Kristen is our new representative from Bucota.
Welcome.
We have a motion to approve the agenda. Did we get a second? I heard two motions there, I
Second.
think. Second, so I think the motion came from Chad and seconded by Joan. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those
Aye.
opposed, nay. The agenda is approved. Has everyone had a chance to take a look at the minutes from our March 1 meeting? Can I have a motion to approve the minutes of March 1?
So moved.
Thank you, Joe Downing, and a second.
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 Thank you, Joan. Is there any questions, comments, thoughts on the minutes before we take a final vote to approve them? Okay, all those in favor of the minutes of our March 1 meeting, please say aye. Oh, Richard, did you have something?
Oh, no, sorry, I was just about to say aye, that's all.
Oh, okay. All those in favor of the minutes of March 1, please say aye.
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 All opposed, please say nay. Okay, the minutes have been approved. Public comment. Do we have anyone here for public comment today? I am not seeing any hands. So we will go on to old business, of which there is none. So we can cruise right on to new business. And there we have a quick session update from Travis. You are up.
Great, thank you. I just saw there is a hand up in the on the screen. I want to make sure before I start from Chad Sutter. I assume it's not.
Oh, I'm sorry, Chad. Yeah.
Hey, I was just wondering if you could maybe add to your agenda items. Maybe we can, Jeff, just we haven't really had an update in terms of the transfer or the turnover of the facility and timing, as well as how that's going to be happening at the WARC from Waste to Republic. If maybe Jeff might be able to as an agenda item.
That's agenda item B on our list today.
I'm sorry.
That will be the second. That'll be.
Yeah, that'll be the second presentation today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Great.
Any other questions?
Looking at the agenda, I apologize.
That's okay. Travis, you're up.
Great. Amanda, I just wanted to check in very quickly. I'd made some last minute tweaks just in case anything had changed and I'd sent it over. Do you want me to share my screen, or would it be preferred that you put the new presentation I emailed up if you have it? What do you prefer?
Yeah, why don't you share your slides just to make sure that we have the most recent ones?
All right, perfect. All right, just wanted to confirm, are you seeing the PowerPoint presentation?
We do see it.
Excellent. All right, well, good morning. Thank you for having me back to the Thurston County SWAC. My name is Travis Dutton. I'm a policy analyst with the Washington State Association of Counties. And just in case there's any new faces or I didn't cover this last time, the Washington State Association of Counties is a sort of a central body that represents all 39 counties in the state on a range of issues that generally are statewide issues. And in some cases, some very specific issues that address a majority of counties or a large number of counties. And we do legislative and policy work during session. And then during the interim, focus a lot on preparing for next sessions, but also a lot of education and a lot of planning and work for counties as well. And then just wanted to acknowledge Commissioner Mejia is here with us, and she is the Thurston County representative on the Washington State Association of Counties Legislative Steering Committee. So it's nice to see you here, Commissioner, in a different capacity than when we normally see you. So I'm going to be providing an update on the legislative session. It's in a much different place than when I spoke to you back in January, obviously. So I'm going to go over, just refresh a little bit of the information that we talked about last time and some of our goals, and then go into some updates. And while I'm sharing screens, if there are questions at the end of each slide, if we could do it that way, I'm not sure that I'll be able to catch hands. So if somebody could help me, or if you just want to speak up, I'll pause after each slide and give some time to ask some questions. So just a quick refresh. During last year's interim, our solid waste affiliate, the Washington Association of County Solid Waste Managers, of which your solid waste management manager, Jeff Bickford, is an active member of, set legislative priorities for this year and the coming years, depending upon how these went. Our 3 priorities this year were to support extended producer responsibility programs that both created meaningful environmental outcomes, focused on waste reduction and waste diversion, and also provided funding relief or funding opportunities for local government programs to better manage certain products or more efficiently managed products that wouldn't be covered under EPR. So there were quite a few bills that came up this year, so I'll cover which ones came up and where we engaged. But that was one of our #1 priorities for this session. A second one was to advocate or support restoring the solid waste collection tax to the Public Works Assistance Account. I'm sure most of you are familiar with the Public Works Assistance Account being low interest loans for local governments to develop planning projects and infrastructure projects. And then lastly, less this session, more long-term planning is modernizing solid waste program funding. A lot of counties, most counties in the state depend upon tip fees at the landfill and local solid waste financial assistance funding from an account that receives a lot of funding from the sales of fossil fuels and hazardous materials. Both of those are either targets for the state to reduce the money going into it through fuel efficiency or diverting waste from the landfill, both of which would reduce the amount of these funds. And so to find newer, more sustainable funding sources for solid waste moving forward. So those were our 3 priorities, and I'll touch on some things that came up legislatively, but I'm going to stop quickly and see if anybody has any questions around the priorities. Or Jeff, if you have anything you would like to add as one of the members that helped develop these, please feel free to jump in and share.
Yeah, I don't believe I have anything to add to that right now.
All right, and I'm not seeing any hands, so I'm going to jump on to the next slide. So at the beginning of the year, I mentioned there were a couple of solid waste bills that had been pre-filed. Where we are at right now is these are all of the solid waste bills that came up or were proposed or considered during this session. And I have some very nice classy skulls there to indicate which ones are dead. And if they do not have a skull, they are still alive. So I'm going to just go over these very quickly and let folks jump in if they have more specific questions. The bills that came up this year related to solid waste that we engaged in were the WRAP Act, that is the Washington Recycling and Packaging Act, and that was an extended producer responsibility program for packaging, for product packaging, and for printed paper. So it would have required any producers of these materials to fund the collection, processing of those materials. And it also required certain levels of recycled content to be included in the manufacturing of these products. And it also included a beverage container deposit program as part of this as well. So it encompassed a lot. It was a 143-page bill that grew and shrank a little bit, but ultimately it was a very large bill that tried to accomplish a lot. So with all of those, that bill made it it never actually made it out of its house of origin. It was introduced in the House and never actually made it through. Our solid waste Waxwim affiliate was in support with some concerns around how funding would be provided to counties and whether complete funding would be provided to counties. And we did quite a bit of work to change the language to ensure that counties would be able to receive reimbursements for any of their costs associated with this bill had it passed. as well as opportunities for counties to opt out and protect any revenue that they might be getting from recyclables that would be lost. Ultimately, it never made it out of the House, but we do expect something or some version of this to come back in future sessions. And I'll cover it in the budget, but there's some studying of the cost and impact and needs of a program like this that money was provided for a study in the budget. Battery extended producer responsibility. Similarly, it puts the cost and organizational burden of managing end of life of batteries on the producers. Right now, that is still alive. And it is in a spot where we have been able to make some small tweaks again to just ensure that both urban and rural counties are going to receive equal levels of service, and that full funding is reimbursed to the counties that choose to opt in and participate, so that county revenue, the SWIFA, tip fees, et cetera, are not going to fund battery management programs. Plastic pollution is a bill that is still alive that targets plastic that has the potential to end up in the ocean or as litter. So it prohibits the use of single-use, I want to say bathroom. For some reason, I feel like I shouldn't say the word bathroom, but it's basically anything when you go to the hotel, shampoos, soaps, any single-use plastic wrapped products that you would see at lodging establishments. It prohibits the use of those products at lodging establishments of a certain size. It also requires the installation of water bottle filling stations at any new construction that would require drinking fountains. And it also addresses and takes a look at both studying and managing what are called overwater structures. So foam wrapped in plastic that are used as docks, buoys, or other ocean or water structures. Right now, it is still alive. Both the battery and plastic pollution bill are waiting to be pulled onto the floor for discussion and ultimately being passed or dying. Right to repair was a bill that would have required manufacturers of cell phones, tablets, laptops, and other devices to provide instructional information on how to repair their devices and provide equipment or make their equipment available to do so to a broader array of small repair businesses. Ultimately, it was, I think, a good bill that would have really helped both small businesses and the state's e-waste program and other, just expensive cell phones, given the opportunity for people to extend the life of these products. But there were quite a few concerns about both the security of people who were getting their phones repaired, the privacy, as well as protecting corporate, not corporate secrets, but really just private or proprietary information that the producers did not want to get out. So that bill it did die, I think last week or the week before, so just recently. There is a compostable packaging advisory group bill that is alive, and that would assemble a group of stakeholders to take a look at compostable plastic, compostable serviceware, and ultimately make recommendations on how we manage those products in the states, either included in or separate from our composting programs. With the goal being, we want to reduce waste. We want to make sure that if something is divertible from the landfill, we do so, but we also want to protect the quality of the compost that is going to be produced when the Organics Management Act starts to ramp up. And we start generating compost and counties are required to purchase compost. We want to make sure that it's clean of litter and that it's marketable. So that bill is also on the floor or waiting to be pulled onto the floor for discussion. There was an extended producer responsibility for lights. There currently is a Mercury light bulbs program where you pay an eco fee, and that fee is meant to fund a program to develop collection for mercury containing bulbs. This would have both extended that program, removed the eco fee, and also added all other light sources, other lights to an EPR program. Ultimately, that bill this was the first time it had been introduced. and it was indicated that it was going to be run, but likely not heard, and that was the case. It was heard, but never passed out of its committee, and will likely come up again in the future. And hopefully during the interim, we'll have an opportunity to work with some of the sponsors of that bill to make sure that it's effective for counties and accomplishes what it needs to. Similarly to the lights bill, there was an appliances EPR bill that would have addressed any white goods or appliances that contained harmful gases. Again, this was the first time it had been introduced, and so it was discussed and heard, but ultimately did not move. And this is another bill that we have discussed working with the sponsors around to help improve. And the last one, which may be less relevant on the west side of the state, however, has been a very interesting one to research, is a study for how to both recycle wind turbine blades and encourage or incentivize the construction of wind turbine blades with recycled content in them. There's there are quite a few landfills on the east side of the state that have received wind turbine blades, and they are quite big, difficult to manage, difficult to handle. And the opportunity to recycle them, that technology is up and coming. It seems like it's new, but it's not quite where we in Washington can ship all of the blades to the locations that they need to be sent to be recycled. So those are the bills that came up and their current status. I'm going to stop here and see if there's any that folks want to dig in on more, or Jeff, also, if there's one that's most relevant to your county that you want to bring up for your folks, please go ahead.
I have a question.
Yes.
Was there any discussion about styrofoam? We lost here in Thurston County opportunity to recycle styrofoam through the DART plant that left, and wondering if that's on the agenda somewhere, because it desperately needs to be.
I am not aware of it coming up, other than the foam that is in the overwater structures that I mentioned in the plastic pollution bill. Styrofoam was not anything that came up during this session. Not that it won't in the past or that it's not recognized as important, but it did not come up this session.
A lot of it floating in the ocean.
Yes, I do think it's something that needs to be addressed. It just didn't make it up the rungs this year, but hopefully we'll have something else to report next year, maybe. So
thank you.
Any other questions for Travis before he moves on?
All right. So going to very briefly cover the budgets. Both the House and the Senate released their operating and capital budgets, and in the most recent versions, right now from a solid waste perspective, things look very good. Not amazing, but they look good. Our local solid waste financial assistance in both the House and the capital budget and the governor's budget is $24 million over the next 2 years, which is where it was last session. So it's not more money, which would be wonderful, but it's not less money. And given the last 10 years or so, the fact that it's where it needs to be is, well, not where it needs to be, but the fact that it's the status quo, or the amount is being saved, is a good sign. But of course, we'll keep watching that for any last minute attempts to sweep. But SWIFA is sustained where it was before. There is in the House budget, in either the House or the Senate, there is $400 million, or sorry, 400, that should be a K, not an M, that's a significantly different number. $400,000 in the House budget and $500,000 in the Senate budget for the needs assessment, or a study of what is needed from an EPR program and what the impacts of that EPR program would be. So while that WRAP Act that I mentioned for plastic and paper did not pass, they were able to get some money in the budget to take the initial steps to inform future EPR programs by studying what it would cost and what would need to take place. So that's in both budgets, but there's a $100,000 difference. And again, those should be Ks, not Ms. Just in case anybody's writing this down, I'll update it and send it to Amanda, but for record, those are significantly larger numbers than I meant to put in there. There is also right now in the House budget, $10 million for landfill methane management. So last year there was a bill that requires methane management at landfills. And so this is the first of what they've identified as a $50 million project. I don't have details yet. I need to reach out to the Department of Ecology to understand and get a sense of how this $10 million is planned to be distributed, or if there is any more information other than we're allotting $10 million from the budget to this right now. But that's a good sign, because that was largely an unfunded mandate that needs some funding in order for counties and solid waste programs to manage methane coming out of both open and closed landfills. And then lastly, there's $2.5 million in both budgets for a composting emission study to help scale the development of new composting facilities in the state. So again, not a lot of really great, wonderful things here, but there's some movement in the right direction, or at least with some of our funds, no steps backwards. So I'm going to stop there. Any questions or additional comments or anything? All right, not seeing any, I'm going to go on. So just to give folks the next steps, we've got 2 cutoff dates approaching. So April 9th is the bill needs to be, any bill, it's the House. The next cutoff means any bill after April 9th that has not moved out of either the Senate or the House back to where it started will not be able to move forward. And then April 23rd is sine die, so last day of session. And everybody in our office is really looking forward to that date because it just means the end of a very long sprint marathon, someplace in the middle. But those are 2 dates to keep a look at, and things are going to pick up. While there's significantly fewer bills, the attention and urgency around the ones that are still remaining ramps up around these dates. So there's going to be a lot of work. And of course, if there are any bills that are necessary to implement the budget, they may still come up at the last second, but right now, none of the bills that have died on our behalf are in that position. So anything that's dead or alive should stay that way, depending on how they move through these cutoffs. During that time, we're just going to keep monitoring those remaining bills. People are still trying to make some behind the scenes tweaks and clean up and get what they want out of these bills. So right now, just monitoring and communicating with our partners to make sure that if anything significant changes in any of these bills, that we are able to discuss it or able to prevent or support it. And then we're also monitoring budgets, making sure that there are no significant changes, making sure that those numbers that I shared with you earlier are either consistent or increasing, which would be great, but at least consistent and not being swept or diverted to something else. So we'll be monitoring budgets. And then kind of moving into the interim, we've had some with the Public Works Assistance Account. It is, I think I'd mentioned that very first bullet was that we wanted to support the return of money funding sources back to the Public Works Assistance Account. And right now that's funded at $400 million. Which is a good sign, because that means that money is, the diversions will be sunsetting, and the Public Works Board is starting to plan for applications and starting to plan to train folks. So our solid waste affiliate is going to be working with the Public Works Board to train and give our folks the technical knowledge of how to engage with the Public Works Assistance Account. Traditionally, solid waste programs have not pursued Public Works Assistance Account money, and we've spent some time trying to identify why and what opportunities there are. But quite a few counties, there's about $1.6 billion in capital projects over the next 10 years for solid waste projects just to sustain current services. And so we need to start making sure that we have money to do that. So we're hoping to really engage with the Public Works Board on how to engage with this account and start applying for those low interest loans or grants for planning. We're also working with the Department of Ecology on a funding study that is the intention of that study came out of last year's organics management bill. And the goal of that study is to both identify current funding opportunities and how those are being used across the state, potential alternative funding models for solid waste in Washington, evaluating the impact of the cost impacts, both negative and positive, on considered and recently passed legislation, such as the Organic Management Act, or the batteries bill that had been brought up a couple of years in a row. So understanding where those benefit or if negatively impact counties funding wise. And then also identify what the cost to implement statewide, what our affiliate calls the core services model, which is, if anybody's familiar with public health, and the foundational public health services are, what are the basic core services that every county and every jurisdiction in the state should have related to solid waste, recycling, and composting before we move on to bigger types of programs. So that funding study is, we're seeing some final drafts now, and that is currently due to the legislature with recommendations by the end of June. So we'll be working with our solid waste affiliates on our solid waste managers to make sure that that study is in a good place and that it's usable, so that we can really understand what's coming and plan for our funding. And then lastly, we are having our annual solid waste affiliate meeting in Tacoma in June. We'll we'll do a little bit of recapping from the most recent session. We'll start to plan for our next session, hopefully engage with stakeholders, legislators, and just continue to build knowledge and to build relationships with who we need to build relationships with, so that we can help effectively support legislation and help build good legislation moving forward. And then we'll also be working on some resiliency planning, how to start building continuity of operations plans for solid waste programs. And that has come out of some recent railroad strike conversations. Last year, with the threat of the railroad strike, a lot of counties, we did a lot of work around realizing that quite a few counties were only a couple of days away from, if the strike happened, a couple of days away from being able to provide just basic curbside solid waste services. And that a lot of the contingency plans that counties had in place were no longer viable because of workforce issues, because of equipment availability issues. And so there's a need to kind of go back and look at rebuilding regional contingency plans. So we'll be working on that a little bit as well in Tacoma. So those are our big next steps. Any questions or comments there, or anything anybody would like to add? That is what I had to cover. There's my contact information. And obviously, if anybody has any questions, you're more than welcome to reach out and talk or vent or talk to me about other materials that you feel like you want to see come up in the future. But it was a very busy session for us. We built some very good relationships with some of the environmentalist partners that we worked with on this bill. And spent a lot of time working on a lot of bills that ultimately didn't go anywhere, but yielded some really good relationships, and I think some knowledge and some information that we can keep refining how our solid waste affiliate engages with the legislators and legislation, and also how we explain and how we tell the story of the impacts of these bills effectively, so that we can really get to the heart of the benefits and the impacts of these bills. So that is all that I have.
Thanks, Travis. Are there any final questions for Travis before we move on?
This is Laura. I just want to jump in and in case folks aren't aware, I'm going to put in the chat a link to the expanded polystyrene ban that is in effect from the 2021 plastics law. You may already be aware of it, but since there were questions about styrofoam, I thought I'd.
Thanks, Laura. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
Anything else before we let Travis carry on? Yeah, Joe. Joe,
Can you hear me now?
we can.
Oh, good. Travis, I just had a question. It seems shocking to me, going back to the windmill blades, that it seems shocking that the producers of the blades don't have a responsibility to at least chop them up before they bring them to a landfill.
I should, yeah, I wouldn't say, I guess I don't know what the requirements are. I do know that there are, that the companies that own the blades do either contract with transportation companies and processors to, they usually are chopped up, or at least how I've seen them, they are chopped up into very large pieces. I was working in researching this a little bit and talked to Walla Walla County and got some photographs. And so the problem is that I have been made aware of is that it's still pretty early in how they need to be processed. And so they are often cut up. However, they were being transported in Walla Walla County to an empty lot or a property, and they were chopping them up there, and it was creating air quality issues for the community, and the public health department had to go in and shut it down. So I would agree that there is likely a need to make sure that there is more responsibility in how they are handled, but there are, you know, they are being cut up at least before being put in the landfill. But if you ever get a chance to just Google turbine blades in a landfill, it's a pretty impressive amount of space that's being used to dispose of a hollow material. And I saw Stephen Gilmore on here. Steve, do you have wind turbine blades in Roosevelt?
We haven't taken them since about 2018. So
2018, okay.
yeah, so that was the last blades that we received. They were chopped up, like you had mentioned. There is technology now in Europe where they are actually recycling the blades. It's just a matter of the companies doing the right thing. You know, and ultimately it's cheaper not to have them be recyclable. So that's why you're seeing companies not do the right thing.
Thanks, Joe, for that question. Any other questions for Travis? If not, thank you, Travis.
Absolutely. I'll share the updated slides. I'll correct that million versus thousand, and I'll send that over to Amanda for notes purposes. So thank you all very much. I really appreciate it, and look forward to seeing folks in the future. So bye.
Thanks.
Thanks, Travis.
Bye-bye.
Very good, thanks.
And now we're going to get an update on the transition from Jeff and Steve Gilmore.
Right, well, Amanda, you want to pull that up?
I should have said the much awaited report on the transition.
Is it much awaited? Okay,
It's much awaited.
apparently.
Chad can't wait to hear it.
All right, well, yeah, so we wanted to give you an update on, as you know, the transition from Waste Connections operating our facilities to Republic is coming up shortly on May 1. So I thought we wanted to kind of give you a breakdown as we're getting close on what the transition process has been. It's been ongoing for just about a year. So next slide. But before I do that, I'm not going to go over all these individual items. Just kind of wanted to just remind everybody how we got to where we are right now. And this all kind of kicked off way back in 2019. There was an evaluation committee established to look at, putting this out for a proposal and developing a new contract for that. So an RFP was actually released back on January of 2021 after a couple of years of development, with the proposals being submitted on April 8th of 21. Those were evaluated and then that was brought to the Board of County Commissioners at the end of June in 2021. And then based upon approval to move forward with the recommended proposer, which was Republic Services, we engaged Public Works engaged in contract negotiations with Republic from July through November of 2021. And then ultimately, after a number of work sessions with the Board of County Commissioners, the public hearing was held in March 22nd of last year. It's a little bit over a year ago. And interestingly, the contract was signed and awarded a year ago today, April 5th of 2022. So basically from that point forward until now and continuing through when the contract will actually take effect on May 1, we've been going through a transition period. You can go to the next slide. And this kind of shows what some of that transition period work tasks that were engaged. This was the transition plan. So again, it shows it from April through now and up until they take over on May 1. These items were going on. So let's kind of touch on these quickly, and I'll talk more about some of these here shortly. But they have a couple items, as you can see. The county facilities conditional walkthrough and pre-commencement observation period are still coming up. But really, initially, the first big push was the development of a number of the operations plan, and a number of different types of plans: emergency response, spill response, containment, O&M, safety and security, transportation plan and contingency, and waste screening, which was done over the last summer. The county had the opportunity to review those plans as they were sent in draft, and then they were finalized. Then, as you might expect, probably one of the more anxious items for, I know, Republic was the equipment acquisition delivery. Obviously, as you know, with the supply chain issues, they've been working on this diligently since the contract was awarded. That contract was signed through that time, and I'll talk more about that here shortly as well. But that had to start right away. They've been subcontractor coordination as far as with their subs that Republic will have, such as performing the hauling of containers off-site to the intermodal and up to the landfill once it gets down there. Monthly transition meetings were scheduled from that point on, so we could, there's a lot of dialogue back and forth on various issues, make sure that we had things coordinated and clear. And then you see a couple other items here, submitting key, contact information, key personnel, et cetera. So we all know who to contact and give notice to. The transfer station permit renewal, so we do that annually, but it had to be a change because we have a new operator, a new operations plan. The county is responsible for that. And then there's some notices that will be given this month. So I'll elaborate on those on the next slide. So some of the highlights. So the first large piece, as far as it was very interactive, was the development of operation and maintenance manual. This is key because it's really, though there's not a lot of things that are going to be substantively different, and I'll talk about some of those differences in a little bit. Generally, the operations are very similar to what's going on right now. But there are some potential differences that the way Republic does things versus the way Waste Connections does things, and those are wrapped into the solid waste or the transfer station site permit that we get from Public Health. We have to submit an operation and maintenance manual and plan to go along with that. Additionally, Republic had the emergency, the spill response, the containment, safety and security, transportation, their contingency plans, and the waste screening and protocol plans. They were all developed. We approved them all, and they're ready to go. And those were all completed in, I believe it was October of last year. Since, I believe, September of last year, we've held monthly coordination meetings. Just again, like I said, to resolve issues and make sure that we're all on the same page and get updates on equipment and personnel, hiring and other issues. Likewise, we've also had a coordination meeting held with the financial team to work out logistics for billings, data sharing, and those sort of logistical type of issues. So that once they take over, that we get the data needs to them that they need, and vice versa that we need, and how we're going to appropriately perform our billing. And the next piece, and this is a big one, is that all the equipment's been ordered, with about a third of that already being delivered to the site as of basically right now. And there's a pretty substantial amount of equipment. So far, there's several front end loaders, which are all on site currently, a couple of excavators, a couple of backhoes. We have some of that on site as well, but roll off trucks, a grinder, which is supposed to show up, I believe, here in another week or so, as well as some other rolling stock. So again, about a third of that is already currently on site and being stored here, and some of it is they have procured, it's off site, and they'll be bringing that onto site here in the next couple of weeks. Additionally, there's not besides just the equipment from the rolling stock and that aspect of it, containers. There is a substantial amount of containers that were procured. For example, new drop boxes, of which they've already been delivered here. There's 15 of those that were ordered. That'll be the actual drop boxes. They'll be used in the public tipping area. The even bigger piece is the large shipping containers that we load into out of the compactor or top load. So that basically that they're taken down to the intermodal and hauled to the landfill. Is the Republic purchased 150 of those, which I believe they have received. They're not on site here yet, but they have received those. As just as a reminder, one of the key pieces related to that, those shipping containers, is that in the new contract is for the first 2 years of the agreement, they are to be keeping at least 2 days worth of operations of shipping containers actually on site. And with the days of operations basically equating to about 30 containers a day. So for the first 2 years, they'll typically have at least 60 containers on site. And the third year and beyond, that number goes to 3 years, which would basically have about 90 containers on site. And that's excuse me?
Oh, we were just checking the chat to make sure we're not missing any questions.
But David is leaving. Bye, David.
Okay. That is a key piece of that is that having those containers on site. So if there's any hiccups in the transportation system or trucks or whatever, is that we have multiple days of available capacity, right here on site, and not a just in time type sort of thing. So that is key and crucial. Along with that, one of the key changes, pretty much the major difference here at the Wark, as far as in operations, will be that those containers will be stacked. Right now, currently, when the containers are brought for the intermodal, they're actually on a truck chassis, and the container and the chassis are actually left here, and that it actually eats up a lot more space. The difference will be that they will be bringing in what's called a top pick. And so as the trucks come in, basically they'll take those empty containers and they can pick them up off of the truck chassis and stack them so you can store more containers in a more compact area. And then as they're then loaded and go away, the empty containers loaded on a chassis, they're loaded by the compactor and then they go away. So really from the work perspective, that's probably the largest difference in operations. Other than that, it's relatively the same. Then I want to talk about the employment as far as the employees that are going to be working at the facility. They've offered or tendered offers to 21 of the existing Waste Connections operations staff here at the Wark, of which 18 have accepted. And really, I wanted to even mention is the key position of the operations manager is Jason Franks, who will be basically overseeing our solid waste sites and the operations at all three of these. Is an existing Waste Connections employee currently, and so he will be our new the new operations manager for Republic. So he is very aware of how our operations work, so that it's really going to help the transition go smoothly, as well as the other 17 existing Waste Connection employees that are currently working on site. So basically, about a good 2/3 of the staff that'll be working here at the Wark and the Dropbox sites will be people that are currently doing that, so that have a good awareness and knowledge of how we operate. So Republic has been working with hiring filling those additional positions, and what I've heard They currently will only have 4 more positions to fill prior to our lunch, and they're actively doing interviews, et cetera, for that right now. So
Hey, Jeff, let me jump in too. So out of the 18 folks that we're bringing over from Waste Connections, they're all will keep their seniority in terms of their time already there. So that will include vacation, medical leave, all that sort of stuff. So literally they'll have benefits on day one with probably a lot more vacation time than they probably anticipated or expected when the transition happened. So we're kind of viewing this as an acquisition of sorts, where those employees, we count their tenure with the previous company when we offered them the jobs. So that's a really good thing, and most of those folks were extremely happy about that that part of the transition.
yeah, that's a good point, Steve. Additionally, I want to mention that one of the other key differences between our current operations and what will happen moving forward, and this relates to the employees, is that at our Dropbox sites, part of the way they'll operate now is there will be 2 Republic employees at each of our Dropbox sites on the days they're open. Currently, there's none. And what those 2 employees will be doing, one will be assisting customers as far as previewing loads. They will have backhoes at each of the 2 Dropbox sites where they'll be able to compact those boxes at least 1 or 2 times before they get hauled away. Currently, the waste that the customers bring, they gets dropped in. A lot of times there's a lot of empty space in there, but we don't have that ability to compact. We did this as a test case at Rainier for a period of time, and it was quite successful as far as reducing the number of hauls of boxes going off the site. So that will be happening at both of the 2 Dropbox sites. So the Republic employee will operate that and do the compaction. The second employee will be working in the recycling areas of each of the 2 sites, where they'll be able to assist customers, answer questions, very importantly, monitor what's going into the recycling containers at both of those Dropbox sites, which was really going to help to reduce the amount of contamination of those recyclables. Because if you've been to either of those 2, the sight lines from our employees don't have the ability to really get down there and monitor that. So sometimes we do get a bit of waste in this recyclables. So this will help to improve the recycling stream out of there. So that's going to be, additionally, the Republic will be responsible for doing the on-site like landscaping and upkeep, so which also will help us to be able to focus our employees and staff on doing other things. So that's the other really substantive change as far as the new contract between, and we're particularly excited about that. And additionally, on the transition highlights is the department ourselves, we applied for and we have received the solid waste transfer station permit from Public Health to be active as of May 1st, which with the Republic being the new operator. So that is in hand. And next slide. There you go. So as you know, the organics that would be brought to the work will now, starting on May 1, will be going to the Brady compost facility. Just wanted to give a little update on where they're at. I've had the opportunity, not quite every month, but close, and visiting there and meeting with Evan Brady, the owner, and just seeing how the progress has gone there. So to give a little overview on how that site development has gone. So they received their ORCA permit back in late spring of 2022. And then also read shortly afterwards that their operations plan was approved by both Mason County and the Department of Ecology. And so to date, they have received their Mason County permit to operate, as well as DOE approval. The facility is permitted to process up to about 70,000 tons per year. And just as a note, is currently we are collecting a little over 30,000 tons a year here in Thurston County. So They do have the capacity, one, for us to grow, as you know, particularly with the additional push for organics and the most recently passed organics law. There's that piece, as well as within the next couple of years, there's going to be an additional push for commercial organics collection. So there's some ability to expand for us, as well as for them to maybe accept material from others potentially. They began the building construction, of which you can see a picture there in late summer 2022. It's quite a large building. It's looking very nice, and that building was completed with all its air handling system. It has an active air injectors in the floor. And that was installed, and the receiving area was just recently paved, and that was completed in March of 2023, just recently. The liner for the stormwater pond, for basically the water that's coming off, is set for next week. And then basically, other than that, the facility is ready to receive material starting May 1st. So it's looking good. We're excited about that, and they have told us that they're ready to roll.
And the second phase of their building will be actually started this summer. So what this picture doesn't show is right across from that building, there's going to be an additional building built that will include the same infrastructure as this building. The great thing about this location is that Evan and Ashley have the ability to basically double the size of this facility. So they can actually go from 2 buildings to 4. So that would push that upwards of over 100,000 tons a year potentially. Of course, with the challenges with Orca and currently with air quality issues, that might be a challenge. However, with the Department of Ecology doing that emissions study, that should hopefully benefit composting facilities and siting them much easier than they have been in the past.
And next slide. And here's just a couple pictures of during the development. You'll see this is before they poured the concrete slab on the floor. Those are all the air injection pipes. So it's, has active air injection, and on the right is the blower facility that feeds that. Next slide. So as far as what's pending activities, there's still a few things before May 1. First off is in their contract is we need to do a facility conditional walkthrough, and it's happening on April 21st. And what this is it's we're going to walk through all 3 facilities and look at the structures and the condition of pretty much everything, and it'll be recorded with video and photos, and then a report will be generated. And this is being done by Republic with, I think, the aid of HDR. So basically, it creates a record of what are the conditions of the facility when they took over. This becomes important further in the future, because at the end of any contract is then we'd like you do something similar is done, and you can compare. Okay, we know the wear and tear. We know what does it look like after because they're a responsibility for maintaining these facilities and areas. We can be able to do a comparison and see where things might need to be fixed up or repaired or brought up to snuff. So that's happening here in just a couple of weeks. The deployment of the remainder of the equipment actually onto the site, which again, a lot of it's they have, but this hasn't been brought onto site yet. That'll happen before then. The Republic staff will be on site the week prior to takeover. Officially, as per our agreement, it needs to be at least the 2 days immediately before, but I believe they're actually going to be there a lot of the whole week before. The May 1st is a Monday, so I know it's going to be, and the whole purpose of this is to for them to observe operations, and thankfully, again, 2/3 of the staff are already on site and know the operations. But again, it's just we want to make sure that they are aware of how everything works and how everything is going, and so that way, it's just looking for the smoothest transition and takeover that is possible on May 1st. And then, of course, lastly is the actual official contracted operations taking over on the 1st. And next slide. Are there any questions? Which I would presume there would be.
That is a lot of activity that's taken place. Thanks for that very thorough update. Do we have any questions or comments for Jeff and Steve?
Could I ask what town the Brady facility is in?
It is in Shelton or just outside of Shelton. Just a little bit east.
Do you have an address for it?
Not right here, Steve. Do you happen to have that?
Okay.
We can send it to you though.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll send it to you, Jim.
Oh, thanks, Steve. Thanks.
Any other questions for Jeff and Steve?
Jeff, I just have a couple of quick questions for you. With this transition, do you expect any changes to the rates? And additionally, is all the other services going to be maintained by Waste Connections? So like all the garbage, curbside recycling, all those things. Can you speak a little bit to those services as well?
No, well, first off, I'll jump to the curbside piece. That there's no change there because that's all UTC controlled and not us or City of Olympia in their case. So the curbside piece doesn't change it. But as far as what we accept at the drop boxes and the transfer stations, that doesn't change either. That was a key piece in our contract negotiations that we would maintain, existing levels of services and hope to even expand on certain ones. So services, there should be no cut. I mean, I don't know if did I catch all of what you're looking for there?
Just looking to speak to like with the change of operations, are we going to expect to see rate
rates? Right.
If there's any additional services that like will be transitioning.
Yeah, as far as the rates, we will be continuing. We've had put on hold a rate study, and it's actually in our budget and in our plan to have a rate study performed, because it's been quite a while since that's been done. So what we've been holding it off because we wanted to have Republic come in, and we haven't experienced what our costs are going to be based upon this new contract. So we wanted to be able to see that and realize that. But it's been I can't remember it, but it's been quite a few years since there's been any rate changes, rate increases here. So I don't know if there would be or not, but there'll be a rate study that'll look at that. But because other than that, the services will continue as generally as they are, as far as materials accepted, et cetera.
Hey, it's Greg. I can jump in.
Yes, please do.
Yeah. Hey, I was just wondering, does the facility for Brady Trucking, they have any kind of limitations on percentage of food waste they're able to take in or anything like that? Is there, or is the acceptable list for organics going to be able to be expanded, or is it going to contract, or just stay the same?
Well, currently, based upon the permit, they accept the materials that we get right now. So basically the same as what's going to Silver Springs. I mean, the material will be the same there, and they're permitted to take those same materials.
Yeah, so what I mean is that as organics collection increases with, there's much aspiration and political motivation to increase the amount of food waste organics collected and put in facilities. Is it within their permit to expand what is currently handled at the park as far as food waste goes and commingled with the harvest? That's more about what your question is directed at.
Hey, Steve, do you want to talk refer to that one?
Yeah, so basically, currently the food waste that they can take is very similar to Silver Springs. The issue that we're going to have with organics collection is going to be commercial food waste. None of the current composting facilities can take that large amount of food waste. What we're doing in California is that we're partnering with a variety of different partners, including anaerobic digesters, wastewater treatment plants, and other facilities that can actually process that material. We're looking at a very large project up in King County that will actually be a large commercial food processing facility. So, I mean, the reality is that I think, as we all went into this organic collection situation, we all know that we don't have enough facilities to maintain the amount of waste that the state would like to divert. We're probably 50 facilities short, maybe more than that in California. They're 176 short. We are now the largest composter in California. We just bought an anaerobic digester company in California. So the reality is that there's going to be a lot of investment made to deal with commercial food waste. And that's a good thing, because quite honestly, the more that we divert from landfill, the less methane that's generated. And at the end of the day, that's, sustainability is incredibly important. We need to do the right thing for the earth.
Oh, that's great. Thanks for clarifying that. Yeah, I'm just happy to see that new technology is coming. The challenges with composting and large quantities of food waste are real, and I'm just curious on what the expectation is moving forward for that increased collection. But thank you for explaining that.
No problem, Greg.
That was a really great question. Thanks, Greg. Anything else for Jeff and Steve? I'm not seeing any hands. So if not, Jeff, you're still on with a Pioneer tour?
Yes.
That sounds fun, a field trip.
Exactly. So what we're looking at was, I know Amanda and I and Dean were looking at we have our annual schedule for subjects, and it was looking like the agenda or potential agenda for May was going to be a little lean. So I know there's been a desire in the past to do some potential tours, to go out and got to actually see some real life stuff. So there's been, I know people have asked previously about potentially seeing the Pioneers Material Recovery Facility, which is just east of Tacoma. So I believe Amanda has contacted them, and they are potentially available on our next meeting date, which is May 3rd. So I wanted to get a feel from, obviously I'm sure everybody can go, but I wanted to get a feel from folks if you were okay with, in lieu of having a meeting on May 3rd, holding a field trip instead. And we can talk logistics as well, but before I want to pose that question first, and then we can talk about potential logistics if that is something that the group is interested in. So open for discussion.
I'm game for that. Anybody else? I just looked at my calendar and the legislature will be home by then, so I can go places again. Greg?
It's Greg, I'm all for it.
Yeah, okay, good.
Oh, yeah, sounds good to me. I've accessibility might be an issue for me, but that's fine. I'll certainly, depending on time, you show up and at least participate to where I can. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Greg, you were breaking up a little bit, but I think the main gist was you're up for doing it, right?
Sounds good to me. I'm available.
Okay, thanks. And Richard, your hand is up.
Yeah, my only, I was kind of planning on hoping that this would be separate to our regular meeting time, like, a separate trip up there. I'm fine with doing it in lieu of the meeting, that's okay. But I don't know, somehow I feel kind of like it would be good if we could just have a tour focused on recycling. And then discuss what we have seen at a follow-up time of some time. So that doesn't have to be during a meeting, I suppose. I'm just, I don't know. I think it's a great idea to be able to go up and do the tour, and I would certainly like to participate in that.
And
That's
Richard,
a great point, Richard. And I'm wondering if we could actually have a short meeting, maybe right after the tour, possibly even still on site at Pioneer.
we have to be aware, because you would have to notice that to the public and have a public availability, because you are an
That's
advisor.
right.
My thought would be that we would have a follow-up discussion then at the June meeting.
Hey, how you doing, man?
So we do need to be careful, that we are there to tour and not to talk about business, and that no votes could be held, obviously, but
Yeah. You're absolutely right about that. Open Meetings Act and all that.
Exactly.
Totally get it.
We'd probably do 2 back-to-back time slots too, if the majority of SWAC members are interested because our pioneers said that they prefer only 5 to 6 people per tour group. So I imagine scheduling maybe 2 tours, maybe even a third only for staff, because I know some of our operations staff and education staff have been wanting to go. So also, we might not all be together for those tours.
Which is good.
That's
We wouldn't have a
good.
quorum at any point in time.
Right, that's good to know.
So if there's an interest, we can basically maybe put out a monkey, a survey monkey or something with its times. It's recommend, here's this couple times, and people can potentially sign up. And we can coordinate whether, we'll coordinate whether people that need a ride or want to go there on their own, or and that sort of thing, as far as if we can, what kind of transportation might be desired or necessary or wanted.
Let's start there and give people an option of a couple of times, and then go from there. But I think that's a good place to start. And then to Richard's point, if we could get maybe 30 minutes on our June meeting agenda to talk about what we saw, that would be great. Joe, do you have your hand up?
Jennifer does.
Yeah, I just want to say that, yeah, I would enjoy that tour of the Pioneer facility. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Anybody else want to weigh in on that?
Hi, Renee, this is Jennifer.
Yeah, hi.
Hi there. I just wanted to know, just for staff, Jeff, we can schedule our staff like separate, but I don't want to get complicated with the scheduling with the SWAC board, so.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So I'm just confused though as to how we ever have a quorum and a voting session coupled with a tour.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
Okay.
Yeah, unfortunately, we can't make that work. So
That
so
means
that'll
we
happen.
basically have no May meeting. Is that how?
That is correct. This would be.
That is correct.
Yeah.
But we would come back and talk about what we saw at our June meeting. Any other thoughts?
Okay, then we will reach out with some proposed times and get feedback on preferences, and then we can, once we kind of know how many people we have and who will, we can coordinate if there's transportation needs or whatever.
Perfect. So Jeff, you've got about 10 minutes left for your report.
Well, that should be enough. Thanks.
Okay.
Got a few items to mention. First off, is the work reconfiguration project. I know we've had that discussion most recently. If you recall, we brought that to you earlier this year with a recommendation on the alternative that we were proposing to move forward with, which was the expansion of the transfer station building versus going with forward with creating a new tipping wall. So we actually had a briefing with the Board of County Commissioners on March 22nd regarding our preferred option for the work reconfiguration project. So we're moving forward at this point with the pre-design study. We're working with HDR. So that will be looking at getting stakeholders together to look at, what are our, confirmation of our objectives and criteria for the site, confirmation and updates to the basis of design concept for that option, as well as providing an update on the opinion of probable construction costs. So that the product will be basically having, a more detailed picture of what it is that specifically that we're looking for in a design to move forward. So for design of plans and specifications and that. So we're just getting ready to kick that piece of work off. So you'll be hearing more about it as we move forward, because there'll probably be some feedback coming from this group as well. Anything on that before I move forward? Okay. If you recall, I know that in our capital projects presentation, we've talked about these break buildings at our Dropbox sites. As we've discussed before, the employees currently don't have a place to eat that's indoors. The toll houses there are tiny. The little microwave and the small refrigerator are actually in the restroom. They're kind of ridiculous. So we've been looking at this. We had originally gotten a bid that was way out of line, but we put it back out to rebid, and we actually had four vendors put bids in, and we actually got a good one that was back actually within our original budget for the project. So the contract for that was just signed. The company that's going to be building those for us is called ACE Improvements. And we have our permits are now in hand from CPED. So we are just getting ready to have a project kickoff, and we'll be hopefully having our break buildings out at our Dropbox sites for our employees in the reasonably near future. But we are actually moving forward with that now. Any questions related to that before I move forward? Okay, and last.
Hey, it's Greg. I'm sorry. What was the cost on that project?
It was the winning bid with that was 123,000 and it's for two of them. And they are
nice. And what was the previous one that you said was way out of line?
330.
Well, dude, that's a great success. Good job.
Yeah, I choked on that one. We were not going to do it for $330,000. That was ridiculous. Just a little anecdote of the four bids. The same company put in again on this one, still for 330. So just
wow.
Yeah. So anyway, obviously they did not get the contract. And my last one I have is we recently have put out a request for proposals for an analytical lab. And this was put out jointly with us and the stormwater and wastewater folks. And what that is basically, through all our groundwater and leachate sampling that we have to do related to our old closed landfill, was getting a new contract for the actual lab analyses. We actually take the samples, though we send them to a lab to be analyzed, and we needed to have a new contract for that. So RFP the proposals just came in on March 30th. And we're evaluating those, so we should have hopefully a new contractor for that here reasonably soon. So I haven't had a chance to look at them. I'll be looking at them next week. So I don't know how well they came in, but we had two proposers. So, other than that, I don't think I have anything else. Does anybody have any other questions about that, or just in general?
Questions for Jeff? If not, we're giving you back the 6 minutes that we took last month.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, there is a hand, Jeff.
Yeah, Renee, this is Jeff Harwood at Pacific Disposal. I just wanted to take the opportunity to let you all know how much I've enjoyed working with everyone and having the opportunity to serve the folks here in Thurston County. I'm going to be retiring the end of the month on April 28th. I've been doing this now for 50 years, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. And this has been a wonderful place to finish my career. And y'all will be in good hands going forward. Aaron will be sitting in on the SWAC meetings. I don't guess the transition and reporting structure is entirely finalized yet. But anyway, I wanted to take the opportunity to let you all know how much I've enjoyed working with you.
Well, congratulations, but it won't really be a SWAC meeting without you here. So you're going to have to call in anyway, even though you're retired.
I've still got your number.
Okay. Congratulations. That's awesome. 50 years is an impressive career.
Things have changed a lot.
I can only
Enjoy your
imagine.
retirement.
Thank you.
And Jeff, yeah, thanks. I appreciate, enjoyed working with you and I appreciate, you know, the back and forth that we've had and I want to wish you the best of luck in your retirement.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing that with us, Jeff. We will miss you. Anything else for the good of the order? If not, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.